chairing for this meeting of the Finance and Corporate Resources Committee held on the 28th of June 2023. I can see that we have present Councillor Allison, Councillor Brogan, Councillor Matthew Buchanan, Councillor Andy Carmichael. Do we have Councillor Chalmers? No. Yeah, we do. We also have Councillor Cooper, Councillor Cowan, Councillor Devlin. Do we have Councillor Dewar? Yep, we do have Councillor Dewar. We also have Councillor Donnelly. I have apologies from Councillor Fagan. We have Councillor Grant Ferguson. Do we have Councillor Ferguson Miller? Yes, we do. We have Councillor Handybode. Do we have Councillor Graham Horn? Yeah, we do. We also have Councillor Hose, Councillor Loudon. I have apologies from Councillor Hugh MacDonald, and we have Councillor Carol Nugent substituting. Do we have Councillor Catherine McClyment? Apologies.
Susan Kerr, subbing,
Okay, we just have a wee. Okay, we don't have Susan Kerr present as yet. Let me just have a wee. So we have Councillor Leslie MacDonald present, Councillor Elaine McDougall. Do we have Councillor Mark McGeever? No. I have apologies from Councillor Nelson, and we have Councillor Lockhart substituting. We have Councillor Razak. I have apologies from Councillor Ross, and we have Councillor Scott present. We also have a number of officers present today. I'll hand back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Don't see any declaration of interest. Thank you. Excuse me. The minutes of the previous meeting held on the 3rd of May, pages 5 to 12 in your pack. Can these minutes be approved as a correct record? Any comments or questions? No comments or questions. Can we approve these, please?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. Item 3, minutes of grievance and disputes panel held on the 10th of May, pages 13 to 14. Sorry, can these minutes be approved?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. And item 4, minutes of the recruitment committee held on the 25th of May 2023. That's pages 15 and 16 in your pack. Can these be approved as a correct minute?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. Terribly sorry about this cough. Agenda item 5, revenue budget monitoring, pages 17 to 26. Excuse me, can I invite Jackie Taylor, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. This is the first of 2 revenue budget monitoring reports in the pack. The first one is dealing with the last financial year, 22-23. So this is the full year position that we're now reporting to committee, and at section 5 you can see that we're reporting a break-even position after transfers to reserves, and there's £978,000 of transfers to reserves that was approved at the executive committee. As always, the resource position is outlined at Appendix A, and the services are detailed in Appendix B through to H. And in the appendices, you can see the individual transfers to reserves noted. In terms of the recommendations, we're asking that the overall position be noted. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jackie. Do we have any questions? No. No questions. Can we approve the minutes?
I'll second it. I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6, revenue budget monitoring 2023-24, pages 27 to 36. Can I ask you again, Jackie, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this report now brings us into the current financial year, and this report takes us up to the 19th of May. Again, at section 5, you can see the financial implications. And as at the 19th of May, we are again reporting a break-even position to the phase budget. It is very early in the year. And again, as always, the appendices show the position for the full resource on page 29, and then each individual service beyond there. And you can see any variances from the budget within those appendices. So again, we're asking that the report be noted. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jackie. Any comments or questions? Can we approve the report?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. Dear me, I was fine till I came in here. Can we move on to capital budget monitoring, 22-23, pages 37 to 40. Back to you, Jackie. Thank you.
Thanks again, Chair. So now we're moving on to our capital budget monitoring. Again, 2 reports within the pack. The first one closing off the last financial year. You can see again at section 5 on page 37, the final position on our capital programme was spend of £4.9 million. This was more than we had in the budget, and that relates to the timing of spend on our Oracle upgrade project that I've been reporting throughout the year. The funding for the overall programme is included within the programme for next financial year, which we'll cover in a second. Just a point to note at 5.5, because this is the year-end report, we do have an accounting adjustment that we're required to put through that accounts for any spend that we've made through our revenue budget that should be technically classed as capital. There's a £15,000 adjustment that we make for that. That is for the purposes of publishing our annual accounts only. Again, the appendix on page 40 shows a summary of the capital programme for the year and the spend. All the spend is through our IT services. So again, going back to the recommendations, we're asking that the year-end spend of £4.977 million be noted. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jackie. Excuse me. Can we approve the recommendations on page 37?
I'll second that, Chair.
Moving on to capital budget monitoring, 2023-24, pages 41 to 44. Excuse me, I need water. Jackie, could you speak to this, please?
Again, thank you, Chair. So the second of the capital reports, this time again picking up on the new financial year. As with the revenue report, this report gives us the position to the 19th of May, so very early on in the financial year. And we're reporting at section 3.2 that we have a budget for capital this year of just over £5.3 million for the resource. The spend to the 19th of May is shown at section 5.2, and that amounts to £104,000. The appendix on page 43 again gives a summary of the overall capital position. Again, we can report that the spend on capital this year is again on our IT services. So in terms of recommendations, again, we're asking that the programme of £5.3 million be noted and expenditure of £104,000 be noted as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jackie. Can we agree the recommendations on page 41?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Apologies for the coughing outburst, and thanks to Michelle for the water. Moving on to agenda item 9, Finance and Corporate Resources Workforce Monitoring, March and April 2023, pages 45 to 52. And before that, can I welcome Michelle to her first meeting, and I hope my coughing fit doesn't put you off coming back. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is the first of 2 workforce monitoring reports that normally come to committee. You will be familiar with the format and layout of these reports. The purpose of the report is to provide committee with an update on employment information for the period March and April 2023. I'll pull a few highlights from the report. At paragraph 4.1, the resource absence figure for April 23 was 3.6. Based on the absence figures at April 2023 and annual trends, the projected average absence for the resource is 3.6% when compared to a council-wide average of 5.1. At paragraph 4.2, There were 54 employees attending appointments or being referred for support in this period. This is an overall increase of 24 when compared to the same period last year. Para 4.3, there were no accidents and incidents, and that's similar to the same period last year. At Para 4.4, there was one disciplinary hearing, no appeals, no grievance hearings, and no dignity at work hearings held during the period. In terms of the analysis of leavers at 4.5, in terms of headcount, there were 22 leavers during this period. 5 were eligible for an exit interview during this period, and 1 exit interview was conducted. You'll see at paragraph 4.7, there's information on the breakdown of vacant posts which are being replaced or held for savings. There are no other employee financial implications. In relation to recruitment and equal opportunities, there are a number of questions and or suggestions which rose at Exec Committee. And I'd just like to advise Committee that as part of my first Equal Ops Forum, and thank you for the welcome to today's meeting, I will gather a summary of all the activities and actions that have been carried out to date regarding recruitment, learning, development, particularly around veterans and ethnic minority groups and other areas. And we'll also incorporate the activity from our mainstream equalities report and the next steps into that. So I would hope to be able to bring a summary update to you when we next meet after our Equal Ops Forum. I thought that would be helpful for me and for the group. So referring back to section 2 within the report, committee is asked to approve the recommendation to note employment information for March and April 2023.
Thank you, Michelle. Any comments or questions regarding this report? Alec, oh, who we got? Gladys Miller, please.
Thanks, Chair. It's 4.2, and it says in terms of referrals to occupational health, which include medical examinations and physiotherapy, overall 54 referrals were made this period. So we'd asked at the last meeting, could we identify referrals that are made by management and made by the staff member themselves? Because I think at the last meeting, I think the feedback was that people were referring themselves. However, we were wondering if people are off in sickness absence, clearly it's management that are referring them, regardless of where they're referring them to, maybe medical examinations or physiotherapy, etc. So we were told it maybe come back just for the numbers. We're not interested, who, even what resource, what section, just the numbers, if that was possible.
Yep, thank you. Michelle, can you answer this question, please?
So apologies, I don't have that with me today, but I can certainly get that and I'll share that round so that you have that.
Okay.
Oh, that's excellent.
That's satisfying. Yes, thank you. Councillor Allison.
Yeah, one of the questions that was continually asked of our predecessor was the number of exit interviews. Yes, you're smiling. Mm-hmm. I thought we were making some progress, but we've only 1 out of 5 who are eligible here. Can I have a reassurance that we'll continue to work to get as near to 100% exit interviews as possible?
Yes, absolutely. We had made some progress and the number had increased in the right direction. Unfortunately, that is lower than we would want, but that's certainly something I'll have a look at, and it's certainly something we want to get feedback on. So again, I can have a look at that and give you a wee update. So as things are coming across my desk, I'm having a wee look at it to see if there's anything that we can improve just while we're processing that and picking that up.
Okay. Councillor Richard Lockhart, please. No, right, leave it now. Okay, that's it.
Interesting to see the last report that I saw. It was in the workforce monitoring, and I think the one before, I noticed a very large increase, and it's the same again in this report, in physiotherapy. Now, there's an interesting article I saw about 2 days ago in national press saying there's a huge increase in demands for physiotherapy because of working from home. And as we can all tell from our gloriously comfortable seats here, we're all made to sit up more or less. Whereas at home, you work from your bed, you work from the floor, you work from anywhere that's no good to you physically. And I'm interested to know if you've managed to find any correlation, if that's the right word, between physiotherapy demands. What are they? Are they mainly back? Are they feet? Are they whatever it is? Just to see if there's a correlation between working from home and this huge increase in physiotherapy. Thank you.
Michelle, please.
We do actually encourage people, whether they're in the office or whether they're working from home, to do an assessment around their work area. I know that's not always pragmatic or possible depending on the home environment that people do, but we do offer support around that, and we've certainly made equipment available to people to support them working in the home environment. You're right, physiotherapy referrals are going up. Maybe in part to do with that. We do have that information. We would have to probably survey employees to get more information on the how, why, because we certainly see what the issue is, what is presenting in terms of where they want to go, not necessarily what has caused that in the referral form. The other thing that we are finding just now, and we're going to have a look at that as well, is that waiting lists in terms of maybe accessing some of these facilities out with the council or some of these services are longer. Therefore, more people might be tapping into the council services and using them as well. So there's probably a number of variables in there, but we will look at it because we're going through a new process in terms of some of the contracts that we have around that. And we just want to look at triggers and referrals and assessment and monitoring of that.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions. I can see, can we agree the recommendations in page 45?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10, which is council-wide workforce monitoring, March and April 2023, pages 53 to 74 in your pack. Can I ask Michelle again, please, to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And this is very similar to the previous report, but obviously refers to council-wide figures. And again, you will be familiar with this. So I'll touch on a few areas within that, and obviously happy to take any questions at the end. And I would also say, similar to what we're doing with the finance and corporate workforce monitoring and the links to the Equal Ops Forum and some of the external groups around veterans, minority groups, etc., we will also pick that up in our Equal Ops Forum at our first meeting in terms of just gathering all that information in terms of where we're at, and have a bit of a look to see if there's any areas we can improve on, taking on board suggestions that have been made. So at para 4.1, the council-wide absence figure for April 2023 was 5.1, and that represented a decrease of 1.3% from March. You will see a further breakdown, which we do ordinarily around APT and C, and teachers also detailed in this report, and again some of that can be seasonal in terms of term time. Based on the absence figures at April 23 and annual trends, the projected annual average absence for the council is detailed as 5.1%. And we do keep an eye on that, and we're very mindful to look across councils in Scotland because we will have similar issues or concerns or solutions around some of these, making improvements in that figure. At paragraph 5, occupational health, just a summary. There were 276 attending medical appointments, 375 people attending physio appointments, and again you'll see that figure is high. 280 referred to employee support, 109 referred to PAM assist, and 5 for CBT, and you'll know that some of these will be self-referrals, and again taking on board the comment around some of the breakdown of those figures, we'll certainly do that. Sorry, my screen has frozen, 2 seconds. At paragraph 6, around accidents and incidents, there were 331 accidents and incidents recorded within the council during this period. And at paragraph 7, 40 disciplinary hearings, 1 appeal, no grievances were raised, and 1 dignity at work was raised during the period. And again, on the comment around leavers, you will see there was 113 leavers, and there's information on the exit interviews, which were there 35. And again, we will have a look at that, and we will continue to work to improve that. We are hoping that when we implement Fusion, some of this will be more automated and potentially more accessible, just in terms of the workflow and our ability to maybe remind people more often and ask for their assistance in completing exit interviews when they're leaving. At paragraph 8.4, there is information on the breakdown of vacant posts, again, which are held for savings or being actually replaced there. And you'll see this ties in with the number of leavers that we also have as well. And then at paragraph 9.1, around recruitment monitoring, which I know ties into some of the discussions that we've had around equal opportunities, in terms of some of the detail there. And I'm also mindful of the comment at Exec Committee around census data. And we'll look at the kind of currency of that and see if we can kind of add any value in terms of some of the information that we have around that as well. So in terms of equal opportunities monitoring forms, and some of this information is voluntary or may be fully completed. We had 1,423 applications, 1,360 completed the Equal Ops Forum, 49 declared themselves as disabled, 30 were shortlisted, 4 were appointed. There, 152 applicants were of Black ethnic minority background, 30 had been shortlisted and 8 were appointed. 13 applicants were veterans, 9 were shortlisted and 1 was appointed. So again, we are going to look at that as part of the look at all of that activity in terms of the Equal Opportunities Forum. What might be helpful alongside this is understanding whether there are incomplete Equal Opportunities Forums or if they've been fully completed, just in terms of some understanding some of that data. So referring committee back to section 2 within the report, committee is asked to approve the recommendation to note the employment information for that period.
Thank you, Michelle. Questions? Can we have Councillor Razak, please?
Thank you, Chair. First question is page 65, with absence classifications. COVID, is that under respiratory? Or would that be under something else?
It would be under respiratory.
So that's gone down by a fair margin from last year as well, which is good. And also on page 73, the analysis of gender, disability, I think, and etc. I'm having one of those days, and age. I'd like to welcome the fact that we've been successful in appointing a veteran. I think this is the first one I can remember today that we've appointed, so that's very good news, and I'd like to welcome that.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Grant Ferguson, please. Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for that, report, Michelle. Just with regards to the Council Workforce Monitoring, page 48, I think it's good to see absolutely that at least one veteran was recruited during this period. We had been advised that at the last 3 meetings that a report would have been brought to the committee to advise us how the council would aim to help increase the veterans recruitment. Now we've asked that same question at every committee since, and we've obviously got no doubt that the council have a strategy. However, we've still to see the report. So just to see if there's any kind of movement on that.
Geraldine, please.
Thank you, Chair. There has been some work done because we are now working to the new Armed Forces Covenant, which has been enshrined in law, and there's been a lot of work done with the Veterans Champion within the council, personnel and the other bodies to allow them to influence the process, to give us advice on how to improve that process. So that is still ongoing as far as I'm aware, and that should inform any report that we're able to bring back. Councillor Ferguson, sorry.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, no, that's great. No, thank you very much. But it's just an idea of when we would be able to see a report. Do we have any idea of a timeline for that, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Gladys Ferguson Miller, please.
It's just to confuse everyone. My question is on it's point 5, the occupational health, on page 54. I'm just wondering if the cost of a referral, I remember that the last committee we had asked, was the council charged per referral rather than having a contract with a company and, you know, there'll be a number of employees that we can send to this service. I know a number of organisations have pay on referral. So if we're referring 109 employees, as it says on the report, are we paying for the 109? That was answered that yes, we pay on referral. What I was wondering is the difference in cost of referral in relation to the service provided. So if we're referring them, you know, if they're getting a medical examination, are we paying a different cost? If they're going for physio, if they're going for counselling, just wondering what that looks like.
Michelle, please.
I will be able to give you that information, but we're actually going through a tender process just now in relation to that. So I wouldn't comment just now, but I can certainly take on board what you've said. Certainly it's something we want to look at in terms of where those referrals come to. How diligent are we in checking the appropriateness of that in terms of the circumstances? Are we making the most of that, monitoring the number of referrals? So, for example, with physio, what type of ailments, for example, require X amount of appointments? So we're going to try to be a wee bit more thorough with that, certainly going forward, but I can certainly get that information and bring it back probably after recess. And in relation to the date for an update report, which was a previous question, again, once we have the first Equal Opportunities Forum meeting, I would hope that on the back of that, we'll be able to bring a report back and give you an update, summary of all the activity that we have going on, and maybe some background summary in terms of like veterans, etc., that we've had previously, and summarise that for you.
Thanks very much. Chair, can I ask us?
Yes, indeed. Yep.
I was wondering, when we're referring people, do we ever use any of the third sector organisations?
Michelle?
Some of that might depend on support that employees are maybe getting externally themselves. So it might not be directly from third sector organisations, but they may support employees in terms of accessing our services. But again, when we're looking at a review of this, if there's anything that we can do to improve the process or use our partners or community links better, we're absolutely happy to do that.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, happy with that? Yes. Thank you. Councillor McDougall, please.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for the report, Michelle. My question is in relation to the table on Appendix 13A of the report. I'm looking at the table and it records leave vacant pending savings or service review next to another column that says plan to remove for savings. I was just interested to understand the process around that, how that works, and if a post is removed, is that likely to put more pressure on existing staff?
Paul, do you want to? Michelle, sorry, Paul, please.
Okay, listen, I'll happily give an answer around that. In terms of savings proposals that would be brought forward, what we would always look to do is to accompany them with an explanation and a bit of background about what the saving is or how the saving is being achieved. So if we were to point to efficiencies for example, and how a service was being carried out. And if I pick, for example, in the case of our own resource, back office services, we would always look to try and identify how we are securing an efficiency. Now, that might be through something like improved use of systems or improved functionality within a system that lets us do that. So the other area where we would be likely to identify savings, and this is all the way across the council, is by changing or ceasing an activity or changing the level that an activity or service is provided at. So between those two things, what would become unacceptable is asking people to do more in these cases. So for example, simply taking money out of the system and the assumption that people are going to work 10 or 20% harder, that's something that's, by and large across the piece being challenged by elected members and challenged in our conversations with trade unions as well. So hopefully through steps like that we would take in bringing savings to yourselves and in getting those approved by elected members, we would minimise the risk that we're putting employees under additional strain. So hopefully that answers your question, Councillor McDougall.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further questions indicated. Can we agree the report?
I'll second the report, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11, revenue and collection and approval of write-offs, pages 75 to 80. Craig, could you take this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of the report is to advise committee of the collection performance at the end of May, give an update in respect to the business rates incentivisation scheme, and also to seek approval for write-offs. Moving to section 4, the first table in the appendix presents the collection performance for council tax, non-domestic rates and sundry debt. And just taking each of these in turn, in relation to council tax, that's currently ahead of target by 0.03%, non-domestic rates 0.2%, and for sundry debt, that's marginally behind at 0.3%. Moving on to arrears collection, again, that information is provided in detail in the second table for Appendix 1. For council tax, we're currently ahead of target by 0.4%, non-domestic rates 0.2%, and sundry debt is currently equal to target. Section 6 of the report gives an update in relation to the business rates incentivisation scheme, and just to note that guidance and information is awaited from Scottish Government with regards to any reinstatement in 23-24. Section 7 covers the proposals for write-off. Just draw committee's attention to 7.2 and the one proposed for council tax. That includes the bulk write-off for prescribed debt for financial year 95-96. There's also write-off noted for non-domestic rates, the bid levies, sundry debt, and also former tenant rent arrears. An Appendix 2 provides a full detail in relation to sundry debt. So, refer committee back to the recommendations. The performance in respect of collection is noted. The current position for this is also noted, and write-offs as listed at bullet point 3 are approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Craig. Questions? Councillor Razak, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for non-domestic rates. With the Scottish Government's shambolic deposit return scheme fiasco, that there'll be businesses that have got the equipment that's been installed in an area of their business, and that was supposed to be exempt from business rates. Now that this has been delayed to October 2025 minimum, so what will the position be for them for that? Will they still be exempt till 2025 onwards, or is it going to be now back in to be charged?
Yeah, I mean, still, that's a position to clarify for you, just in light of the changes to that scheme. So I'm happy to come back to committee on that particular point.
Yeah, this is causing a lot of angst with business just now, because there's been absolutely no guidance given on this. And when they've contacted the departments. There's not been really a credible answer either, because there's been no position given either. So I think this needs to be investigated quite urgently.
I would agree, and I'll leave it with Craig, and he'll contact his contacts in the Scottish Government, because as you say, you're right. This we do need an answer to this. Can I leave it with you, Craig, please? Thank you. Councillor Loudon, please.
Chair, thanks for that report, Craig. I noticed that the recommendations, so 2.1.3, there's no mention of school meal debt in the write-offs. Could we have an update on that, please?
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, certainly that's correct to note there's no write-offs proposed for committee consideration in respect of school meal debt. That is a position that College and Education are currently keeping under review. If they identify any further accounts for it, they'll pass that through to Finance and Corporate for consideration via a future committee meeting. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Loudon, are you? Oh, she's away. Councillor Allison.
Craig, the proposals for write-offs of council tax go back 30 years. Why has it taken as long really to write off debts if it is because it's sequestrations in estates? Just why is it as long?
Craig, please.
Yeah, so there was a members' awareness session held back in February that provided members with an overview of the plans as regards the writing off of prescribed council tax debt. In terms of actually measuring the period of prescription, that effectively kicks in, and for council tax that's 20 years, it kicks in from the date there was last some form of activity on the account. It doesn't actually start from the date in which the account was issued, which would tie back perhaps to your point, Councillor, around the actual financial year concerned. So effectively, you can have debt that becomes prescribed, and obviously it does, given that example, obviously some length of time has passed since the account was actually issued, but effectively prescription kicks in 20 years from the date there last been activity in respect of that account. Internally, going back to that awareness session, that did provide members with the information in respect of intentions to bring forward to committee proposals covering a number of different years for council tax, effectively all prescribed debt. And as I say, those proposals are brought forward to committee each opportunity, and certainly I'm making sure they're highlighted in the report to committee at that particular point.
Supplementary, if you don't mind, Chair.
Yes,
so do you
please.
have a figure for the amount of outstanding debt we have in total at this time?
Craig.
In terms of total council tax debt, I've not got the information to hand, Councillor. So I'm happy to share with you the information we presented at the awareness session that just kind of confirms what we intend writing off over the coming committee cycles in respect of that prescribed debt.
So is it possible to get that figure?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks. Councillor Allison. Paul, please.
Thanks, Chair. It was just to say that, going back to that session Craig talked about, we've got a pack of slides where we went through the approach that was going to be taken across the next couple of years with a view to addressing that debt. That's got a whole lot of content and figures in it. So I'm happy to circulate that again after the meeting. And if you'd like, we can sit down and chat through that again. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I've no further questions on this item. Can we agree this report, please?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item 12, Scottish Government consultation on council tax for second and empty homes and thresholds for non-domestic rates, pages 81 to 102. Craig, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of the report is to update committee on the Scottish Government's consultation on council tax for second homes and empty homes, and also the thresholds for non-domestic rates, and to seek committee's approval for the proposed council response. In terms of background, in March 21, the Scottish Government published Scotland's first national population strategy. It dealt with local dimensions of economy, infrastructure, public services and housing. And at the same time, the Scottish Government published its Housing to 2040 strategy, which included prioritising homes for living in and not for accumulating wealth. So this strategy commits the Scottish Government providing councils with the tools and powers to support them to do this. This includes managing the number of long-term empty homes, short-term lets, and also second homes. So the government's aim is to prioritise housing for permanent accommodation, whether it's in the rented sector or home ownership, whilst finding a balance for appropriate accommodation being made available for communities reliant on the seasonal tourist economy and also seasonal workers. In terms of Section 4, Scottish Government and COSLA are holding a joint public consultation seeking views on giving councils the power to increase council tax on second homes and empty homes, as well as considering the current non-domestic rates thresholds for self-catering accommodation and ensuring they remain appropriate. So the consultation was published on the 17th of April 23 with a closing date of 11th of July. The consultation states that taxation is one measure that can support local areas to reach the right balance for local circumstances as a means to influence ownership patterns. It enables councils to apply a premium on council tax in second homes, and that could create additional revenue that could be used to benefit local communities and also contribute to affordable housing schemes. The consultation also seeks views on whether councils should provide with additional discretionary powers to increase council tax on long-term empty properties with more than the current 100% cap to encourage more properties back into use. Views are also sought through the consultation on the treatment of self-catering accommodation on the valuation rule for non-domestic rates. Across Scotland, 88% of self-catering units receive 100% rates relief and therefore paid no local taxation. In the past 5 years, there's been a 20% increase in the number of self-catering units on the non-domestic rates valuation rule across Scotland. The consultation contains 25 questions structured around three key themes, being second homes, long-term empty properties, and also self-catering units. Section 5 of the report confirms the approach we took in seeking views with a cross-financing corporate, but also with colleagues in housing technical resources and community and enterprise resources. The full proposed response to the consultation paper is attached to Appendix 1 to the report, and a summary across the three main areas is as follows. The current definition of a second home should be revised. The current measure of 25 days occupation in the year, equating to 7%, is considered too low. And councils should be afforded more powers to increase council tax on second homes and long-term empty properties at a rate to suit the circumstances of each council. In terms of position with SLC with second homes, although there is less demand for second homes compared to some councils with high demand tourist destinations, the overall point is that councils should have the flexibility to increase council tax for this category of property. In South Lanarkshire, long-term empty properties have been subbed 100% council tax since the 1st of April 19, and certainly so far there's little evidence to suggest that's been a big difference in reducing the number of long-term empty properties, and therefore we believe council should have the flexibility to increase this charge further. And finally, consideration should be given to halt the trend of properties being removed from the council tax register and placed on the non-domestic rates register. Domestic properties purchased for A and B type rental markets should be subject to council tax, with landlords then liable for cap tax throughout the period of ownership, with only hotels and holiday park type accommodation being registered for non-domestic rates. There's no employee implications and there's currently no financial implications associated with the report. If we refer committee back to the recommendations, the summary of the consultation, consideration and proposals be noted, and the proposed response as detailed in Appendix 1 of the report be approved for submission to the Scottish Government by 11th of July. And thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Craig. Councillor Cowan, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick question, just at point 3.3 in the report, it states that in South Lanarkshire there are 1,688 long-term empty properties. I just wondered how many of these are council properties, or are these only referring to privately owned properties?
Craig, could you answer that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. That certainly is the total number. I need to speak to colleagues in housing just to get that figure broken down for you and can revert back to you. Thanks.
Okay. If I could just come back, please, just very quickly. I just also wonder if we have any idea as to what sort of ballpark figure these properties would generate in council tax. Again, I don't expect you to have that to your hand, but perhaps if you could look into that and come back to us, that would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, that is one figure I have actually got to hand. So in terms of our current position in respect of long-term empty properties, that generates on an annual basis around £500,000. That's based upon the 100% surcharge.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Razak, please.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with the response to the consultation paper, and that 7% occupancy in a year is far too low number, and I think it should be increased. The other thing I would probably say is that the Airbnb that the landlord pays the council tax, I think the landlord's making a lot of money on Airbnbs, and I think that I agree with the response you have given, but maybe it could have gone a step further by saying that maybe there should be a sort of a surcharge on that because of the fact that they're making a lot more than if they were to rent it out on a monthly basis, long term. The other part would be on the empty property. I think a lot of the time the empty property is through to somebody passing away and they're going into the estate, and it takes a number of years for that to get resolved. So that could account for a lot. So sometimes it's not done deliberately, it's just the way it is. That's just the legalities of it. And the second homes with holiday homes, I would probably say that I do agree with the surcharge and tax, but I would also caution about the fact that there'd be some people that have worked all their lives and then purchased a second home for retirement so that they can go to it. And then it would be a bit unfair for them to get penalised over again, even though they're on a decent income and not a high income.
Always remembering, Councillor Razak, this is a consultation.
Yeah.
And as Craig rightly said, they've got to the 11th of July to respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that we have already responded to this, Craig? Or is it after today's meeting? Yes, sorry, apologise. Councillor Allison, please.
Yeah, it's looking at the page 86 with the non-exhaustive list of potential factors that you would look at. I'm not sure if we couldn't be slightly more flexible with them. I'll give you an example. A house that I'm aware of has been empty for 50 years. Recently sold. The new applicant is now obviously renovating it to make it habitable. Now, at the moment, they can get a year's grace. A lot of that time was taken up through various things, not through to the time you get through planning, people employed and actually needing to get supplies in place. The place is not yet completed, yet they are now having to pay council tax on it. Surely that's not correct according to our rules today, but surely that's something we should be looking at, because there you have someone who's purchased the property and going to make it habitable after 50 years of literally being abandoned. So can we not get a lot more flexibility in these factors to take account of situations and others that may arise where good deeds are trying to be done, and we shouldn't be billing them when they're trying to do that. It's a suggestion for the response.
Okay, thank you. Craig, please.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Allison. I would say just in relation to that 12-month timescale, I mean, that's very much there to obviously to make sure that there is that incentive to bring properties back up into use. And I take your point, obviously there can be a range of factors that can impact the ability of an individual to bring a property back into a good state to become livable. I think the concern would be to go longer than that, then obviously potentially disincentivises that actions on behalf of the individual and ultimately potentially impacts council tax collection levels.
It's also a disincentive if it's too short a time for people then to purchase a property that's empty and requiring a significant amount of work. So I'm suggesting we need a better balance in that process.
Listen, thanks, Councillor Allison. And if I can maybe just make a suggestion that there's, and I'll hand over to Craig on an aspect of this, there's maybe a distinction that needs to be made between what's legislative, which is what's being consulted on here, and what's council policy. So I don't know if Craig can just clarify around that point. That relates to council policy or that relates to legislation?
My understanding is that's legislation-based 12 months.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Right. So having got that point of clarification, I think with all of the inputs that we've had, they could be comfortably reflected in the response that we give, right? In terms of either in a covering letter that we put back to the Scottish Government or within the comments fields that are in here, even the fact that as a council, we've taken this to committee, we've got direct elected member input, obviously from various councillors, including Councillor Razak and yourself, and we can reflect those comments back in and they can be taken into account by the government. If councillors are happy with that, we can do that.
Yes, I think that's agreed. Yes, thank you. Councillor Loudon, please.
Oh, sorry, my camera's off. Hi, Chair. This is actually a point of order not directly related to this item. If you want to take it now or at the end of business.
Yes, take it now.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I know that this is a matter for individual councillors. I wondered if the Chair could offer the opportunity to one of the councillors who's spoken this afternoon to correct an earlier item, which would be a declaration of interest, to afford them the opportunity to declare an interest in the Federation of Independent Retailers and as a landlord.
Please. I'll pass this to Geraldine. Thank you.
The Code of Conduct states that a declaration of interest is a personal matter for individual councillors, weighing up against the tests that are in the Code of Conduct. So it would be for the individual councillor to consider those and to determine whether a declaration should be made. If they don't feel that a declaration should be made, then that's a matter for themselves.
Can we just leave this, Councillor Razak, please? I think Geraldine's explanation and having recently sent out information regarding points of order. If there's no further questions, can we agree?
Could I come in with a further question then?
Yes, on you go.
Okay, thank you. If you weren't happy to take that as a point of order, could you maybe advise which circumstances or how you would like us to be able to raise concerns like that at a future meeting?
I think Geraldine has answered that, but I'll let her speak again.
A point of order about declarations of interest should really be made at the beginning of the agenda when declarations are sought. If anyone has any information that they feel should be made available at that time, that's the point to make it, not later on in the agenda. So the opportunity is lost. However, it is a matter for the individual member to determine after assessing the tests set out in the Code of Conduct.
Could I have one further comment, please, Chair?
Yes, on you go.
Thank you, Geraldine, for that, and I appreciate the guidance you give us on these matters. I think the point is that it's not always going to be possible to predict whether a councillor might come in on an item or not before he or she decides whether or not they need to declare an interest. And that might only be apparent during the discussion. But I'd be happy to ask for further guidance out with the meeting, so I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No further questions I have. Can we agree this report, please?
I'll second the report, Chair.
Okay, moving on to item 13. Item 13 and 14 are both items for noting. However, notification of contracts awarded October 22 to March 23, pages 103 to 108. Craig, would you like to speak to this report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This provides notification to committee in accordance with standing orders and contracts. Those awarded by Finance and Corporate should be the 1st of October 22 to 31st of March 23. Just going straight to section 4 of the report. The contracts awarded for that period on the basis of lowest offer and or most economically advantageous offer submitted is provided at Appendix 1. And referring back to the recommendations, the details of the contracts awarded be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. There's no comments or questions on this. Can we agree the report? I'm acutely aware that it's 2:58. We have a couple of minutes. If we can just go on to item 14, and then we will not require to have a 5-minute break, if that's all right. Item 14, safety at sports grounds, reissue of general safety certificate for Hamilton Park. Pages 109 to 112. Geraldine, please.
The annual safety certificate follows an inspection, and the inspection was held on the 19th of April. The certificate had to be issued before the first race meeting, so the Safety at Events group had considered all of this and had considered they'd met all the requirements, so it was recommended to the Chair and the Director of Finance and Corporate to sign it under a section 37C to allow it to be issued in time for the first race meeting.
Thank you very much. No questions on this item either, or comments indeed. Can we agree the recommendations?
I second them, Chair.
Okay. I have no items of urgent business. First of all, can I apologise for my coughing escapade earlier, and can I wish each and every one of you a happy holiday, and I'm delighted it is now 3 o'clock, so we have not gone over the time. Thank you very much. Have a lovely holiday.